our first article is, or actually not article, but segment, as we have several articles, is about Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. He's made several public statements that have our hairs on the back of our heads kind of rising. Um, One is that he has offered to buy a plane, train, or automobile ticket for any person who doesn't like that the United States is a Christian nation. Lots to say about that. But he has also made several other remarks, such as calling public schools, says they must take control of public schools because children are being abused by being taught filth. And now we'll get into what that filth involves, but it's concepts such as transgenderism and homosexuality. So lots to say there. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So just a
Yeah.
little bit on Mark Robinson. He is the current lieutenant governor of North Carolina. So let's get into these articles a little bit, gentlemen.
I don't know if we're gonna be able to get to all of this guy's crackpot claims. The show's only an hour and a half long, but this
Mm.
one that I found was that in 2018, I think it was, he claimed that the character of Black Panther, the Marvel, like one of like highest
Hmm.
grossing Marvel movies ever, was created by an agnostic Jew and put to film by Satanist Marxists. I
Ooh,
don't know what a
Ew.
Satanist Marxist is, but I
but we
mean,
should stop them all,
but
right?
but yeah, be careful
A
because
Satanist Marxist.
if you go out to watch this movie, and then he goes on to use a slur to describe black people who enjoyed the film, and he's a black man. Like, talk about being a traitor to your cause. This guy is he's all kinds of crazy. Teo, do you know what an agnostic Satanist Marxist is?
Probably any of us who don't think like him, because
Yeah.
man, those are the typical accusations that you're going to hear whenever somebody wants to attack you because you don't believe or you don't behave like they want. And yeah, he's attacking his own people, his own race with racial slurs. I mean, how low can you fall? And this is the typical guy. Well, I mentioned it on the previous episode. Those guys who are the worst of the worst are trying to turn the USA into a Christian Sharia law country. It's terrible, and I'm going to use this from my notes because I was reading about something that you do have, something called the First Amendment. I'm sure you know about that, right?
No,
Where it
tell me
says
about the First Amendment.
oh, come on. Do I? The foreigner have to tell you about it? Well, the thing is that in the First Amendment, amendment, it's explained that this country is not a Christian nation. So it's just, actually, it says that everyone in the United States has the right to practice his or her own religion or no religion at all.
Mhm.
And this led me to something called the lemon. Oh, I have it in my notes. The lemon test, which was created in 1971 by Lemon v. Kurtzman, which created these three tests to determine whether the particular government is trying to act politically unconstitutional. Oh, sorry, is trying to enforce policies that are unconstitutional by promoting religion. The
Mhm.
first one is that any policy must have a non-religious purpose, not end up promoting or favoring any set of religious beliefs, and not overly involve the government with religion. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this guy going against all of these three rules? Isn't he being like the most unconstitutional possible guy that he can be? Or his behavior at least?
I mean, it's possible to be a secular bigot as well, but seeing as
Absolutely.
most of the rants that I saw were delivered from churches, I'm probably gonna side with you on that one. What do you think, Laura?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, um, I don't know. I'm looking over some of the stuff that he said, and a lot of it is about policy. It's about public schools. It's about what we should be doing in public spaces. So yeah, absolutely. It's not just a politician saying, "Well, I believe in God and that's my right." This is a politician saying that I should be able to enforce Christian dogmatic ideology on the masses, specifically in
Mhm.
public school, which I find very concerning. Um some of his stuff talks about, and I'm trying to find it here in one of the articles, but he talks about that in public school there needs to be Jesus and prayer and such teachings. So I think that you really don't get more I should say it this way. You don't get less of a separation of church and state when you have politicians saying that our public schools should advocate for one God or another. And I don't care which God it is, Christian or
Yeah.
otherwise. Like if there's any advocation for one single God in public schools, that breaks that separation clause.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, right? Like the episode 973 of how the actual facts don't match this right-wing weirdo's assertions. Prayer's not illegal in schools. You're
It's
allowed to pray in
not.
school. You can pray in school. They're just not going to set time around to pray to your God.
Well, and you
And
can't
that,
enforce prayer in school. You can't tell a child that they have to
exactly.
pray. And that's kind of what he's advocating for is like teaching Jesus to all the public school kids.
Of
And
course it
further
is.
teaching things that go against sexual education, for example, like he'll take the Christian spin on sex ed and say that that's all that we should be offering to kids in public schools and not offering them education on safe sex practices or things about like different sexuality or different genders. It's like a running narrative, Christian
Yeah.
narrative.
Despite
Yeah, he
evidence
said.
from the CDC that teaching abstinence only sex ed leads
Is
to higher teen pregnancies and levels of STIs. Who needs facts when you're Mark Robinson? Just
I mean, sex is biological. It's not something that we turn on and off. And if we can't acknowledge that and can't discuss it responsibly as adults, then we're going to keep having the same issues over and over again, no matter how
Mhm.
many abstinence programs we push on people.
Oh yeah, no, those guys prefer to take women's rights away, and you know what is going on in Texas, rather than actually educate people, which is terrible. This guy, once again, this guy represents everything that is wrong with those people, and by those people, I mean people who don't want real education, who want to impose their religion in at schools. Who and yeah, this guy had to be the whole package. He is an anti-vaxxer,
Mhm.
and I'm going to say that for me, this guy is a monster. He dared to publicly say that any politician who tries to convince other Americans to take COVID-19 vaccines should be voted out of office. I mean, he goes that far into his hatred against knowledge, science, and these awful ideas of imposing his own beliefs. And sorry, guys, for me, it's everything that is wrong with the USA right now. I'm not talking about your country, Laura. I'm sure you know more than me about that. But it's everything that I see that is destroying your country from the inside.
No, he is the epitome of it. Yeah, no, I agree. And one thing that you struck on is the whole voted thing. You said that he said any politician that supports the vaccinations and all that should be voted out. This is what's so scary is that he himself was voted in. So he's representing a populace here. Like he has the support
Mhm.
of his constituents. So when
With
he says these
43%
things,
of the popular vote. Sorry, had to throw that in there.
that's true, yeah.
43%
So
of the
that's
popular
one thing
vote.
that we can definitely talk about that in terms of voting is that sometimes when these people are voted in, they're only voted in because they got the majority of the votes, not because they got a significant amount of votes. So
Yeah.
43%. And I'm guessing that the rest of the votes were split among too many other people to get a different person into office. But
His
facts are
next
facts. He was
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Laura. The
no, no, go
next
ahead.
closest person got 40% of the vote and was also a black person. I think it was a black woman actually.
Huh.
Um, and she was sort of the moderate, but that's the problem is these vocal crazies, they
Mhm.
galvanize, and I've said this before, the right galvanizes behind these hot topic word salad issues better than the left does, and that's why we've got Mark
Yeah.
Robinson.
And the right I've
We
noticed uses a lot more fear-mongering tactics, and that
Oh
can really
yeah.
get people's emotions up, and then you kind of feel like you have to vote for these people in order to keep your American values. And I really think that really says something. The fact that someone with so this kind of rhetoric I would think is insane. But the fact that he was voted into office and that he has supporters is very shocking. It's not shocking to me, it's disappointing.
Yeah,
yeah,
and
of course. Oh,
I
keep going,
thought,
Nate.
in the interests of the nonprofits and that we like to attempt to falsify our beliefs and we like to
Mhm.
actually believe things for good reason, I thought, I think this guy's wrong. I'm pretty sure I've seen a plethora of studies showing that sex ed and specifically teaching LGBTQ issues
Mhm.
to kids is a good thing. So I looked up a couple of studies, and if I may, I would like to throw a couple of statistics out there at you.
Absolutely. Let's hear him.
Please do.
So, a study from the CDC found that 78% of youth reported using their phones to look up sexual health topics in the last year. So, if it's child abuse, why are they actually going out and looking for this stuff themselves? They want to know, and they're going to get it. As of 2014, fewer than half of high schools, less than 20% of middle schools included curriculum that the CDC considers to be essential to health education. Queer youth who have a single adult in their lives who are accepting are 40% less likely to commit suicide. Queer kids are also twice as likely to report that they have no plans to pursue post-secondary education. 74% report being verbally harassed. 30% report being physically assaulted. And get this. This is the one that really got me. 30% said that they've missed school in the last month because they just didn't want to go. They didn't feel safe. 10% missed more than 4 days in
So
a
what does
month.
that say about the love of Jesus? Those last
Yeah,
statistics right there. Like this guy is calling our nation a Christian nation, and he's espousing Christian values and stuff like that. But then he's also calling the LGBT community filth. And he's saying that any teaching in the public school setting about LGBTQ issues is abusive to the children. So I mean, my first question obviously is, what exactly do you consider abusive? But honestly, like I really think that it's shocking to me that you can, on the one hand, espouse the everlasting love of an eternal God, that's just whole and complete. And then you can also, at the same exact time, tell an entire demographic of people who are just trying to live their lives and just trying to not get harassed and bullied and picked on, that they're filth. I mean, that
Yeah, well,
perpetuates the bullying, don't you think, when his constituents
oh
hear
yeah.
this kind of crap?
This
of
isn't
course.
love thy neighbor. This this is something
This is
completely different.
ostracize thy neighbor. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
this
when
is
you
this
talk
is
about
Yahweh.
suicide statistics, that's pretty
Yeah.
impressive, like that, and impressive in a very negative way, but you're talking
Yeah,
about, like, a higher rate of suicide within the LGBTQ community, and it's because of this sort of ostracizing and bastardizing
exactly.
and making them feel dirty and horrible that these children even get to the point where suicide is an option.
Religion teaches discrimination.
Yeah.
I still remember some people who, when we were talking about why gay people should be able to marry, they were like, "Oh, they're trying to be like us," and it's like, "What do you mean us? They are like us. They are human beings. They are people with rights." But people who had been taught to hate them don't even see them as equals. It's terrible. And yeah, it's sad that these type of politicians, they get so much support from people. You will have to explain to me what is that thing about numbers and percentages. I thought it was just like in everybody everywhere else, that you vote the guy, and the guy with the most amount of people voting for them, they get the position.
It's
But
called
anyways,
first past the post voting.
I have no idea what that is, and I will have to think about that. I'm pretty sure I've heard about it, but as it's politics, it's not that interesting for me. Sorry, people.
Well,
Uh,
sadly, in a two-party system like the United States,
Mhm.
I'm not aware of any real alternatives. We have it here in Canada, and it's ridiculously dumb. It makes no sense in a multi-party system. But maybe Laura has a better insight into that.
I don't know when you say "pass the post," I've never heard about that. So I don't
First past the
first
post.
past
Yeah,
the post, yeah, I don't know what that means. But unfortunately with our voting system, and Nay, if I'm way off base with the whole pass the post thing, then you'll have to come back around to it and explain it. But in terms of how she gets into, or how he gets into office, it's just a simple majority. It's whoever gets the most votes, right? So he can get, like you were saying, the next runner up got 40%. If he
yeah,
got 40.5%, right, he would still be the next lieutenant governor. So it's
exactly.
it's
It's the
really a matter
first
of,
person to get enough votes that the other person can't win.
right, exactly. Yeah. No, so that's what you mean by first past the post. Yeah, I
Yeah,
got you. Yeah.
oh,
So
that sounds so
even
good.
if they got all the rest of the remaining votes, what he's saying is the other person would still be voted in.
Oh, now I get it. We do have that thing where if two are too close, they go both of them go against each other. Oh well. Anyways, so my point was about how they have so many people because they are talking the truth or talking what everybody else don't dare to talk. And this sadly is talking about a huge number of homophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic people who want to be represented. I read this guy and it reminds me of Chuck Jones and Donald Trump and all their followers. I mean, people, why do you feel that your hatred needs representation? Who hurt you so much that you want your hatred to be represented by those people? Well, I do have my theories, but I find this quite sad, really, really sad that hate is the thing that makes you choose someone more than
And I
anything
don't
else.
yeah, and I don't think that I mean, to be fair and to play devil's advocate just a little bit, or heavenly angel's advocate, I don't think that they honestly think of it as hate. I think they think of it as, um, people operating outside of what they would see as a right way to live or a holy way to live. Like, if you would just give up your homosexuality, or if you would just act the gender that you are, you would be in line with God's plan for you, and your life would be better,
Ugh.
and yada, yada, yada. So I think the hatred comes from a lot of the rhetoric, but I think honestly, and I'm really trying to be generous here, but I think honestly in their own way, they think that what they're doing is representing a loving position of, well, let's all get on the same page, let's all follow God's law, let's all be happy, and let's all get to heaven. What they don't understand is what repercussions their rhetoric has, like, and I think that they do understand, like, logically, but in their mind, there's a lot of, well, that it's not that I hate you, it's that that behavior is dirty, it's wrong. Like, we would say stealing is wrong, we would say murder is wrong. They kinda lump a lot of social behaviors in
Yeah,
with that don't hurt anybody, that don't have any actual moral ramifications, um,
I
so
think you're right.
yeah.
It's because now that you mentioned that, I have seen a lot of people saying, "No, these people are imposing their homosexuality onto us," and they actually feel that recognizing that these people exist is something bad and against them.
Right.
I think that's the root of it all. That like they feel attacked when people start getting rights, when people start being recognized as people, and they can't just erase them and say, "No, no, 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 they are evil" or something like that.
I'm inclined to be less charitable, being on the spectrum myself. Um,
Mhm.
I think what you're talking about, Laura, definitely applies to a lot of moderate Christians,
I would
but
say everyday
what
Christians.
yeah.
Definitely not Robinson for sure, but I'm just like the everyday voter.
Yeah, well, this I mean, this guy's like if you listen to his speeches, I listened to 2 and I couldn't listen to any more.
Yeah,
He's
pretty
literally
bad.
calling out anyone who disagrees with him to fight him.
Yeah.
He's like, come talk to me and I'll sort you out. I'm a big
And
strong
he's
man, blah blah
what he's
blah."
saying that really gets to me, and I know we need to move on pretty soon to the next couple articles because we've got some
Yes.
really good ones, but one of the things that he says to me, or that what he was saying to me is that, he the call for people to leave the nation if they don't want to be in a Christian nation and to go live in a non-Christian nation. Like that mentality just boggles my imagination. And that's where I don't have any sort of leniency or gratuity whatsoever towards that kind of rhetoric of, how on earth do you live in a place that's supposed to be a melting pot? It's supposed to give freedoms to
Mhm.
everybody. It's supposed to be a place of, like, love and opportunity and equality. And it's just, eh, that kind of rhetoric, it blows my mind.
Yeah, he kind of forgot e pluribus unum, I think maybe, and went with the other one.
Yeah. All
I
right.
just
So,
sorry, I'm just before we wrap up, I just want to point out a quick thing. The head coach of the Oakland Raiders was forced to resign over racist, homophobic comments here. I think it was yesterday or the day before. It was revealed that he sent a bunch of rancid emails with all sorts of hate speech, and he has to resign. How is it that an elected official does this and he's
so
allowed to stay in office?
it is interesting
How?
that you say that because NBCnews.com did report that people are calling for his resignation. So
Oh
people's
yeah.
the hairs on the back of their necks are up. People are angry. So his resignation is being called for. Whether or not that actually happens, like, I don't foresee that. I would be actually pretty pleasantly surprised if it does happen. But at least those voices are out there saying, "Hey, let's get this guy out of office." And then
Final
Teo,
word
I want to
there.
give you the last opportunity to speak on this article before we move on.
Yeah, thank you. Final word before we wrap it up.
Yes.
It's good that this happened, that people start getting upset at this and that they are taking action. The Blue Power Ranger, my favorite guy, he was harassed to such a level that he had to quit because he was gay and he was being bullied by all the other actors and everybody on set. And nobody thought that was wrong back at the time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we should live in a society where that doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah. And baby steps just don't seem to be fast enough, do they?
Mm-hmm.